What is good, YouTube? It's your boy ScootTC here, and today we're going to be doing a draft breakdown for the FDL Season 2. Now, what is the FDL? The FDL is a draft league hosted by the homie Spring. I'll leave a link to his YouTube down below in the description. We'll be doing a lot of videos based on the draft, so if you could obviously go show him the support, it really means the world to me. But basically, the FDL is a VGC style draft. This is a draft where we pick 10 Pokemon, we bring 6 to each of the battles, and then obviously from those 6, we pick 4. Obviously, it's doubles, you know, VGC style. We'll be using the Regulation D rule set with the addition of Walking Wake and Iron Leaves both being available in the game. Now, hopefully I've remembered to put the tier list up, but basically a lot of us voted on basically how good we thought certain Pokemon were, that it was averaged out amongst us, and then basically with how many Pokemon we wanted in each tier, it was then split off. And, you know, basically that's how we got the tier list. I do not necessarily think it was perfect. I think there were a few Pokemon that were slept on. One of the big ones for me was Hisuian Arcanine, which I did plan on getting. Unfortunately, it was sniped from me. So I'm just going to pull up the draft here. So as you guys can see here, this is a snake style draft where the Urshifu went pick 1 and the Hisuian Arcanine went pick 14. Basically from left to right as it slowly worked its way down. You know, Urshifu to the Arcanine to the Hisuian Gudra, back to the Talonflame, down to the Thundurus, and so on and so forth. Now, my team here is the Roaring Moons, and as you can see, our first pick here was the Walking Wake. So as I'm sure you guys just saw there, our first pick of the draft was Walking Wake. Now, we took Walking Wake at pick 14, mainly because this is a Pokemon I'd never used before, and I was really curious to see basically what it could do. Obviously, it's not legal in VGC just yet, but we thought it'd be, you know, be fun to just include them both, and for me, I had to snatch it up in the first round. Now, this is a really interesting Pokemon. For those who don't know, obviously it's a Paradox one. It has photosynthesis, but its signature move is Hydro Steam. Now, as you can see there, Hydro Steam, rather than, you know, losing power in the sun like a water move does, it actually gets boosted in the sun, which means this is one of the best water types, you know, either anti-sun or, you know, it's just really good, right? It's a fantastic water type in the sun, probably the best water type we've ever had for the sun. So for me, this was like really interesting, something I really wanted to build around. Now, to round out the draft from here, you know, I had to pick, I think it was 5 picks later technically, because obviously I'm at the back end of the draft. And from there, I decided to go with Roaring Moon. Now, obviously, you know, as I'm sure you guys saw, you know, my team is the Roaring Moons. Roaring Moon is my favorite Pokemon from this generation, and I had to have it. Not to mention, Roaring Moon with Walking Wake is actually a really good combo. Basically, these are 2 mons that can abuse the sun. Now, obviously, with Walking Wake, you have a very powerful special attacker here. As you see, you know, it's pretty quick at 109, 125 special attack, paired up with Roaring Moon again, 119 and 139 attack. This is a very potent offensive duo. Obviously, my team is pretty scared of fairy types. With these 2 Pokemon, you know, if enabled, they can do a lot of damage. And this was basically the core I built around. And look, my plan going into this was pick up these 2 first if I could get them, which thankfully I did. And then from there, I really wanted the ability to go with Manual Sun. Now, the reason I wanted Manual Sun over something like Torkoal was because I wanted the ability to also run this in weather. Because, again, if you look at Walking Wake, one thing this opponent has is obviously Hydro Steam's really good, but it also has access to Hurricane, which means I can fool people, you know, thinking that maybe I'm bringing Sun one week, and then all of a sudden I bring Rain, and I just start throwing off, you know, like stab Hurricanes in the rain, if I go for something like Terra Flying. Because, again, this one hits so damn hard, and it doesn't need the Sun, obviously, because, like, Hydro Steam is still boosted by the rain, and it is probably the best, I don't want to say it's the best water type move we have right now, but it's definitely up there as one of the better ones. Now, unfortunately, one of the main ones I did actually want to pick up was Klefki, and I believe that was actually sniped a little before this pick. So when I was looking at it, there was a few options. The main one I really wanted was Grafaiai, just because it did give me a resist to the fairy types, which obviously these 2 mons are pretty weak to, but there was still a lot of other options. There were things like Murkrow, you know, there were things like Sableye was still on the pool, you know, there was just a lot of really good options. So what I ended up opting to go for here was a really good redirection mon, especially in, you know, a VGC style draft, and that was actually a Vivillon. Now, to me, Vivillon was one of the steals of this draft just because it was actually ranked in the C tier. Now, looking at my mons here, I had Walking Wake as my S tier, Roaring Moon as my A tier, which again, I think was a bit absurd. Roaring Moon in the A tier is really damn good. But Vivillon in the C tier to me was an absolute steal. And the main reason for that is it gives you an option in Friend Guard. It gives you an option to go for Rage Powder. It gives you the option for Pollen Puff. It gives you things like Tailwind. Like this one gives you, you know, it gives you a lot of great things. And that's kind of what I really wanted with this draft was I wanted the ability to just be flexible, right? I didn't touch on it either. You know, Roaring Moon, obviously fantastic, you know, physical attacker. It has photosynthesis. It also has Tailwind. It is probably what, I don't want to say it's the best non-priority Tailwind we have in the format, but really outside of like, you know, like Murkrow, Talonflame, Tornadus, and then like, you know, the baby Talonflames, like nothing else really has priority, which means I should always have the option of, you know, going for like Sun plus Tailwind, and I'll always just be faster than my opponents, which is, you know, it's fantastic. It's a great utility. And then Vivillon, as we were saying, you know, it's a decently fast mon. You know, this is something that loves Focus Sash. It loves like Timid Max Speed. And it's a decently quick Tailwind setter. You know, at 155, you know, you do outspeed a lot of things. And then with Friend Guard too, it is also really good next to Roaring Moon. Obviously, you know, you can just click DD next to this thing pretty safely. And yeah, it's just a really good pair. I really think Vivillon is a mon that was super, super slept on. So with my next pick here, I was really looking at probably, getting a prankster, weather setter, basically. I wanted something that I could pair up with my Wake and my Moon and, basically just click Sunny Day. But I also noticed that my main issue was these fairy types, right? And I really wanted a fairy resist, and in particular, I really needed something to help me deal with Flutter Mane, and it didn't even necessarily have to be something that could kill it, because like obviously Roaring Moon has the ability to one-shot a Flutter Mane. It was just, I needed to be able to switch into it, and because of that, I went for another steal of the draft in my opinion, and that was the Iron Moth. Now, Iron Moth is a really, really cool mon because, if you look at this thing's stats, as a standalone mon, it has one of the best special attack stats in the game. It has fantastic coverage in things like Energy Ball, Psychic, I think obviously it has Sludge Bomb, it has Acid Spray. Like Acid Spray with Walking Wake, I think could be fantastic. But yeah, this mon just has a lot of, great utility. Not to mention it 4x resists the fairies, which obviously I'm pretty weak to. And its special defense stat and its HP stat are both pretty decent. This mon really just struggles with physical defense, but that is what it is. This mon just has great utility, and I did really think it was, great to pair up with these mons. Not to mention it's a fire type that, if I do set up the sun, Heat Waves are going to go crazy, but also if I set up the rain, it gives me a fire option that also has Hurricane, and Terra Flying is fantastic on this mon. This mon has a 4x resistance to the ground types, obviously, so being able to remove that massive weakness while, getting something like a Stab Hurricane off this absurd special attacks, that is insane. And also, one thing I want to mention here is when you're talking about Draft League, a really cool thing with, mons like Iron Moth is you don't have to run max speed every week, right? Like, there are going to be weeks, like my first week in particular, which I might touch on near the end of the video, but I don't need much speed necessarily on this Pokemon every week. I can have weeks where I run this thing, slow and bulky with, a lot of like special attack. Like, you look at this thing, dude. If I run this like modest, like, dude, look at this damage, man. This one hits goddamn hard, man. And so that's why, yeah, I went with Iron Moth basically just to give me a check to some fairies. Now, with my 5th pick, this was basically a counter pick to a particular team. Now, I'll actually quickly pull it up here. So going back to it here, there was one team in particular, which was this team here with the 5th pick. Now, as you see, they got Chien Power at pick 5, but then they ended up going Arcanine, Arzu into Scizor. And I'm basically like looking at this, and this is after I picked up my Iron Moth, and I literally just looked at this team and thought to myself, like, how do I beat this team, right? You basically Chien Power plus all this priority is just going to eat me alive, right? I need a consistent answer to this team. And that's why we ended up going with Serena. Now, I'm not going to lie, I've never used Serena before. This is a very interesting mon. For my 5th pick, going for a bit of a risky play. But again, you look at this mon, its HP stats pretty average. Its attack stats great. Its speed's average, but its defenses are insane. Like, this is a very, very bulky mon. It has Leaf Guard, which I will probably never use. But then Queenly Majesty is obviously the main reason to use this mon. The ability to stop, priority attacks from hitting my team is really, really good. And yeah, that's basically why I picked this. This was just a mon where I knew Serena would be highly contested, especially, if it went further on. But this was another C tier pick. So for me, I thought, Vivillon and Serena, paired up as my C tier mons. This is like just a fantastic combo. It's really powerful. It has a great niche. And yeah, that was basically why I picked it. But then to combo with that, I ended up deciding to go for a D tier picks next. Now, look, I'm not going to lie. After the draft ended, I did kind of regret these 4 picks, just because they feel like they're decent in draft, but I really do feel like the other mons on my team really round out the team a lot better. But I ended up going for Hisuian Quillfish. Now, the main reason I went for this thing is I needed an Intimidate mon, and at this point, like all the really good ones outside of the Tauroses, I think were taken, and the only good... I think the only Tauros left was actually the Aqua breed. So not the only Tauros, but like of the good Tauroses. But I really, really wanted to use my B tier pick on something else. So I thought to myself, you know what, let's just go Hisuian Quillfish. A main reason for that is this thing gets the Violet boost. And when you look at this mon, its HP stat's pretty bad, but you just dump it into it. Its attack stat's good. Its defensive stat is really good. And then its special defense is like, well, it's kind of bad. With the Violet, you can really make up for it. And its speed stat is insane in draft. Like 85 base speed in like a VGC style draft is like great because again, you're so close already to that Tailwind threshold where all of a sudden with 12 points, this mon's going to outspeed everything in the format, not named Alecki. And Alecki is only on one team. Like, that's the other thing you got to remember, right? In this format, I can make sure my mons are always calc for everything. And one really cool thing this mon has is, I believe there's a... Oh, what's it called? Barrage. That's the one. Barrage. This is the thing's signature move. Obviously, Overquill gets it as well. But having this little annoying Quillfish just kind of sit there and spam out barb barrages, I think is kind of cool. Like 50% chance to poison you, and if I get the poison on you, the next one's going to do 2 times more damage, which is 120 base power, which again, 120 base power coming from this thing is actually not bad. Like you look at that attack stat, like, you know, if I go something like this, like that's not bad. Like that's a decent attack stat for 120 base power move. Like it's pretty insane. And I thought this would just be a great, you know, great pivot for my team. You know, obviously it's not, you know, immune to, so it doesn't resist fairy like I'd like it to. But it is neutral to it. You know, it's a pretty good defensive typing as well. You know, can't hit us with psychics and whatnot. Fighting type again, like this typing just works well together. And I thought it was going to be just a fantastic pivot one for the team. Now, this is where things started to get spicy. Basically, we were getting to a point where most people had already taken their S tier picks. I believe at this point there was only 3 of us left who needed to pick an S tier. And look, I'm not gonna lie, in hindsight, I actually made a massive mistake here because what I could have done with the 2 prior picks was actually go Golden Go plus Murkrow. Now, I do end up taking Murkrow with my next pick. Spoiler alert. Murkrow was my next pick. It was basically my priority Tailwind, which I thought was kind of insane that it still was there. But also it has Rain Dance, it has Sunny Day, which obviously helps the team out a lot. And then on top of that, I think it's just a great mon. It gives you haze because, you know, I'll spoiler alert too. Someone did get Dozo Tatsugiri. There is an Enamorous plus Thunderous in the league as well. So I thought having priority haze was something that would be really, really important. And Murkrow is just a good mon. I think this mon is like very, very slept on. Like obviously it's an AT pick for a reason, but no one wanted it. And I was kind of at a point where I was just like, you know, let's just take it. Now, again, I'll admit I stuffed up. I wish my Serena Quillfish was actually Murkrow Golden Go. But look, I ended up getting Murkrow a bit later, and Serena's still a good mon. Like, I'm still glad to have Serena. I still think it's a really good mon. But yeah, Murkrow is just a glue mon. As I said, it gives me that manual weather I was talking about. It gives me the sun. It gives me the rain. I can't really complain about it. And then this is where I really started to notice something. Now, as I said, 3 of us had our S tier picks left. And I was almost certain at this point no one was going to take Torkoal. I had my eyes on Torkoal because while I didn't necessarily want Torkoal coming into this, you know, with my team, it's too good, right? You know, you have, look, I've got the Serene, sorry, the Iron Moth, which, you know, loves sun, obviously. I've got the Roaring Moon and the Walking Lake, which also both love sun. And while Murkrow is nice to have, Torkoal just, it gives me that other mode where I don't have to lead the Murkrow, right? I can lead the Torkoal with Helping Hand and boost up one of my other 2 mons. And I started to kind of craft a nasty little strategy. And there was a Pokemon sitting in the B tier, and I so happened to have a B tier pick, and that was Hisuian Lilligant. Now, again, the reason I went for the Hisuian Lilligant is because I was almost certain I was getting the Torkoal. And if the Torkoal was sniped for me at this point, it didn't really matter. There were mons like Spectriera and stuff still available. There was some really, really good S tier mons still sitting there. So I was like, you know what, this one's still good. Even without it, like, I've still got, you know, Redirection. This thing has a Victory Dance. Like, it has some really good stabs in close combat, Leaf Blade, Solar Blade. Like, this one's just great. Not to mention, like, you just look at this thing, man, dude. It's got Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, like, you can't complain about Chlorophyll on this one, man. And again, with it being draft, there are a lot of times where you don't need to run this thing. Like, for example, like, I was looking at my matchup this week. I was like, oh, do I bring like a Focus Sash Lilligant? But then I realized my opponent's team's just slow, and this thing doesn't need Sash. I can just play, like, I can just play a really bulky Lilligant, right? It's really cool. I think Lilligant is a really good mon. And not to mention, obviously, you know, when I'm trying to pair this thing up with Torkoal a little bit later, you know, a little after you Eruption, you know, it goes a long way. But yeah, so then that was basically I think that was my 8th pick off memory. So anyway, a few more picks go by, and I'm basically sitting in a position where I know I have Torkoal locked up. I believe at this point I was the only person without an S tier mon. So there was a few options to pick between. Unfortunately, I don't have like a graph where I can be like, these are exactly what were left. I can show you guys obviously in a bit, you know, the Pokemon that haven't been drafted, but I was sitting in a position where there was 2 things I wanted, right? One was Torkoal. I needed Torkoal as a way to basically give me options, you know, to set up Sun manually. But I was also really, really scared of opposing Trick Room. Like, you know, if you look at my team here, I'll quickly back out a little bit. You start seeing here, I'm very offensive, right? I've got the Walking Wake, which is great. I got the Roaring Moon. You know, these mons they're all really damn quick. Like, my slowest mon at this point, unironically, I believe is my Serena, right? 72 base speed. Yeah, I think, yeah, my Serena is my slowest mon at this point. And my team's just really, really quick. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, like, I need probably, like, at least Trick Room and Prison, right? I don't need a Pokemon that sets Trick Room for me. I just need to be able to stop my opponent's Trick Room from going up. And then I'm sitting there, I'm looking at some options. Because, again, I only had a D tier pick left. And that's when it hit me. Slowpoke. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, like, how is Slowpoke of all Pokemon good in this metagame? Obviously, you know, we've got the Ruin Mons running around. We've got the Hisuian Mons. We've got the Genies, man. Like, why would I ever play Slowpoke? Well, Slowpoke's an interesting mon. Now, I just want to quickly say, I have 3 not fully evolved Pokemon on this team. Yes, Quillfish, Murkrow, Slowpoke. They're all... Yeah, they're all kind of wanting that Eviolite. They're all fighting over it. Which, again, is kind of why, like, I'm kind of sad I went Quillfish. Like, I love Quillfish. I am glad I've got it. But having 3 of these guys is really scary. Now, I did actually look at the Galarian version of this, but the reason I ended up going with the normal Slowpoke is actually because of Oblivious. Now, it's immune to Taunt where the Galarian version isn't, which to me is very important. But again, like, its timing's kind of whatever. With this absurd HP stat paired up with a Violite, like, I can always live what I need to live, yeah? Like, you just look at this mon here. It's so bulky. Like, obviously, 65 defense looks kind of bad. When you times that by 2, all of a sudden this goes up to like, what, 129? This goes up to 90, but obviously you can pump some investment into it, and then all of a sudden that's 145. Like, that's all to do with that in nature as well. There's a lot of things this mon can do, but it has a few really good things. One is, you know, it sits there, it yawns, it's great. It does what it does, but it's also Trick Room mon. That's great. It's also an Imprison mon. Yep, that is my Trick Room Imprison, boys. Don't bring Trick Room into me. Slowpoke will, he'll stop it, I promise ya. But this one also does a couple other really cool things. One of which is, when paired up with Torkoal, it has this cheeky little combo of Surf and Heal Pulse. Basically, at 15 speed, there is nothing in the metagame that outspeeds this Pokemon, right? I'm just going to quickly do this just to quickly show you. But basically, at 18 speed, nothing can underspeed this thing. It is so slow. People are going to have to run room service to underspeed it. But really, like, what threatens this mon that has less than 18 speed? So, sorry, less than 36. Like, there's only a handful of mons I can think of. And then obviously the last mon on the team was Torkoal. I'll just throw that there. Again, you look at, all of a sudden, this gives my team this, like, really weird mode where it's like, are you sure you want to click Trick Room into me? Like, if you want to click Trick Room, that's okay. I'll set up the sun, you know, I'll slap a weakness policy on this bitch, and I'm just going to throw off eruptions, right? Like, if you want to set the Trick Room, go for it. Like, I don't mind, right? If you don't set the Trick Room, Torkoal's setting up the sun anyway for the boys. If you do set the Trick Room, you know, Slowpoke's coming in. I'm underspeeding. I'm always heal pulsing, which means I've always got full HP eruptions. This combo is, like, absurd. And then, not to mention, dude, like, Torkoal on this team, it just does so much, right? Like, if I want to, I can run, it's not Red Card, is it? Nah, what am I thinking? It's a Jetpack is the one I'm thinking of. You can run a Jetpack, which, you know, well, yeah, you know, it switches out basically with one of its stats are lowered. Why is that so good? This mon has Overheat. This mon also has Helping Hand. Like, this can be such a good support. Like, it's really good. It's also got Clear Smog for Dozo and, you know, some setup mons. Like, Torkoal is, like, for an S tier pick, it's not necessarily my favorite. But the fact that this is my last pick in the draft, I can't complain about this. It supports my team so well. And when paired up with the, you know, the Slowpoke here, it just does so much work, man. Like, and again, you start looking at my team here, you see this. I'm very offensive. I've got my Intimidate mon. I've got my Priority Tailwind. I didn't really, I kind of touched on that, I think. I've got Lilligant plus Torkoal, man. Like, after you Eruptions, we got the Slowpoke Eruptions. Like, my team has a lot of options. And it's one of those things where people might be really scared. They look at me, they're like, damn, we got to shut down the Walking Wake Warring Moon. But then it's like, all of a sudden, my Torkoal, which, by the way, is a Fairy Resist, you know, it comes in next to this little Slowpoke, and they just start sweeping, man. Like, yeah, I'm really, really, you know, happy with my draft. I'll pull this back up here too, just so you guys can kind of see all the drafts once again. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with how my team turned out. It's basically exactly what I wanted off rip. I'm very surprised that I always feel like when we do these drafts, I'm always really lucky and I'm able to get what I want. You know, it's very rare where I go into a draft and my first plan is not something I get. Like, normally I'm pretty realistic. I didn't think Walking Wake should have been an S tier Pokemon, and because of that, I didn't think it was going to get picked in the first round. And same with Roaring Moon. I thought the only way someone takes Roaring Moon before me is if they just really want to use Roaring Moon, and at that point, so be it. But yeah, I'll quickly, I guess, just touch on some of the other really scary teams here. Obviously, Talonflame plus Urshifu, that's always just a nasty combo. Having Priority Tailwind with an Urshifu, I think, is scary. That is Rapid Strike. Mouse Ape obviously also got snagged up at the very start here, which is another really, really scary combo. Torn has some really interesting mons, as you can see there, paired up with it. Heatran, Salamence, you know, Iron Leaves, Iron Valiant, all really, really good with Tailwind, I think. The Thunder Wave is... Sorry, Thunder Waves. This is definitely one of the scarier teams, in my opinion. They open the draft up, obviously, with Grimman Screens. And then, as you can see, they end up going into a Tatsugiri Dondozo route. Now, I'm actually not sure if I'm the one who spoiled this in the VC, because like when we did the draft, we were all in a voice chat together. I don't know if they heard me say it or if it was their play the whole time, but when I saw them go Hisui and Zoroark, my first thought was like, okay, Tatsudon's still available. There was only like 3 of us that could potentially pick it. I'm like, what tier is Azelf in? Somehow Azelf was in C tier. I think I voted for it to be like A or B. And then they got it on their back, like on the swing back. And then it got to a point where it was like, he's either getting, you know, Zoroark with Azelf plus Tatsudon, or I'm the one who's going to take Tatsudon. And if I take Tatsudon, I lose my Sun mode. And then it like puts me in this really, really weird position. So that team it's a very scary team. That core of like Grimmsnarl plus, you know, Garganacl or like Tatsugiri, Dondozo behind screens, like it's a really, really intimidating team. They also have the Hippowdon too, which I think is like really good to like stop opposing weathers, which is like obviously really scary for me as a weather team. Obviously the Littens too, they've got Champao, which is like, Champao is always scary, and they've got so much priority paired up with it. Like you look at it, they got a Cellarrock down there. You know, Lucario is also another mon that, you know, with like priority Mach Punch. Does it get Mach Punch? I think it gets Mach Punch, but it gets obviously Vacuum Wave, which isn't really benefited by Champao, but it does get the Bullet Punch as well. They got the Scissor with the Bullet Punch, the Arzu with the Aqua Jet, the Arcanine with Howl plus E-Speed on that team is going to be insane. Really, really scary team. The homie Ice as well, he got Dark Urshi plus D-Knight, which is like also insane, especially with Earthworm. Like if Earthworm can pass like one of those fat subs to those 2 mons, it's going to be scary. And especially with that Screamtail. Like Screamtail is a mon where in draft, it can do so many things. Like it can set screens if you want, because again, like I want to say it's like the 3rd or 4th fastest screen setter. I think you've got like the Clef and Grimmsnarl obviously, and then it's like, actually, yeah, this thing's just faster than Pult even because of booster energy. But yeah, really, really scary team there. My opponent for this week is the Wug Trios, which is the team right here in the middle. As you can see, obviously, it's a pretty hard Trick Room team, which is really scary, but I'm hoping my Torkoal can do some things in that matchup. I'm also hoping I don't even let them get Trick Room up, because honestly, that is the game plan. I just don't want them to set Trick Room. Somehow, don't ask me, but Fluttermane somehow fell to, like, pick, what is this, like, 9 or 10. And it's paired up with Lando, Clef, and Moltres. Like, this team behind screens is actually going to be freaking insane. Also Power Spot as well next to Fluttermane's like so scary. Duncan as well, he got the Chi-Yu plus Fluttermane, which is like super scary. There's also a Regidrago with the Chi-Yu, which again, like if you're going up against a team that doesn't have priority Tailwind, like Scarf Drago next to the Chi-Yu is like freaking wild, man. Obviously I won't go into like everyone's team. I feel bad not kind of breaking it down more, but otherwise if I try to break it down, we'll be here for fucking ages. But yeah, there's also Spring. He got the Enamorous plus Thunderous, which is like super scary. As you can see here as well, the Golden Go was picked up right before I got Serena. That's what I'm saying. If this pick here was Golden Go and then I got Mercury here, dude, like look how scary that would have been if I had these 2 paired up with like Golden Go, especially like Golden Go next to like Friend Guard as well, dude. I could have had some serious power. That's a big blunder by me, but I'm happy for the homie KD to have a pretty powerful team. Because he, these are his S tier picks. He got Gold and Palafin super late. He paired it up with Sableye. So, yeah, that's a really scary looking team. Basically, too, if you guys just want to see what didn't get picked, these are the mons here. I basically have 3 weeks where I can do trades. So I've got these S tier mons here if I feel like, one of mine aren't working out, which I really highly doubt I'm making any trades at all. I think my team's pretty set. I don't really know what I'd switch out. Like, it's literally, for me, it's like the Serena and Quillfish maybe, but even then they've got such, like such important roles on the team that like, again, like you look at this, like no Intimidate Mon here, no Intimidate Mon here, no Intimidate Mon here. Yeah, like nothing there. So like at best, like the only other Intimidator I can get is like Paldean Tauros, but at that point I may as well just keep my Quillfish, right? So yeah, I don't really think I'm making any trades. Like poor Iron Thorn's a C tier mon that still doesn't get picked. Like I was actually thinking about taking this as like my first C tier mon, and then I was just like, I kind of want utility for what I already have. But yeah, these mons here, if you're interested, this is basically everything that's left. Poor other Quillfish not getting, that's Quilavo, but I swear I just saw Quillfish. But yeah, poor other Quillfish not getting picked up like the Hisuian version did. But yeah, there's a lot of good mons. I'll probably just scroll to the end just in case anyone wants to see it. But yeah, these are all the mods that didn't get picked, basically all the super babies. Yeah. But I guess before we close it out, I'll quickly touch on the scheduling for this one, because this is a pretty interesting schedule we've got set up. It's very different to how we've had it in the past. Like normally it'll be, I think it's like 8 to 10 weeks where you just play everyone. Then it's like you go into like your top 4, top 8, depending how many teams you have. But basically, the biggest issue we've had with that in the past is like if someone has a bad season or their team's just not working together and they're like 1-5, they've got like no motivation to play and they stop just showing up to games, which is like pretty. It's pretty rough for the motivation, especially, you know, if you spend the week prepping a team, you know, building a team and whatnot, and then your opponent just doesn't show up on the day. It sucks. So spring has been great enough, and that's not the one I wanted. Which bracket? Yeah, here it is. Bang, there's the bracket. So basically, the way it's been set up this year is triple elimination. So I believe you do have to lose 3 games to be eliminated, unless like you go undefeated until the grand final, in which case, obviously, if you lose in the grand final, you don't get 2 more chances. But look, it's a really, really interesting setup. I'm very curious to see how it goes, because obviously, too, you're playing like kind of a Swiss, you know, bracket where, you know, the better your start is, obviously you're playing against the other better teams, but you're also not down in all these elimination brackets, right? Like, there's nothing worse than going, you know, 0-2 and ending up here, right? So it benefits us, you know, the players who are going to be winning more, but also helps out the players who are losing and, you know, maybe their draft just doesn't work. But also, because players will start getting eliminated at the end of round 3, I do believe round 3 is basically where trades and waivers are kind of capped to. So after week 3, you're not going to be able to make any trades, you can't make any waivers, which for me, it's fine. I know a lot of players have already been kind of moving stuff around, but for me personally, I'm pretty content with my team. So like, I'm happy with how it is. Again, like if I pull the teams back up, streamer page, I think is the best one. Yeah. Like if I pull the teams up here, I don't really know what I would do here. Like I look at my team, and Vivillon's job on this team is I have, you know, a few setup mons. So the ability to, you know, help like a Roaring Moon setup, you know, Friend Guard's also great. Like Friend Guard plus Intimidate makes Roaring Moon so strong, man. Like Roaring Moon's biggest issue is its defensive stat, but again, knowing my opponent's speed stats is, you know, fantastic, because again, you look at my opponent this week, their fastest Pokemon is like Tauros, which like, do I care about Tauros? Like half my team outspeeds Tauros pretty comfortably. Like Loligan in Sun can literally play like Brave, I think, and I'm still faster than his whole team, even if he's Scarf Tauros, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this team. Every Pokemon has its role. I definitely do think like these 4 mons here are probably like sadly the worst 4, but that's just because like these 4 mons just like work so well with my top 2. Like having even just like Lilligan as a support mon, just like throwing off fast sleep powders, helping like Roaring Moon is just kind of crazy. But yeah, guys, that's the team, that's the draft. If there's anything else you guys too, I guess, want to know about the league or anything like that, let me know. Obviously, you know, I'm friends with a lot of players in this league. You know, the homie Spring, obviously, I've been doing this with him for 3-4 years back in the Swish days. But yeah, if there's anything you guys want to know, let me know. Obviously, I'm happy to share information here. I will be hopefully uploading my videos, my draft league videos, same time every week. So for me, Australian time, that'll be 11 p.m. On a Sunday. I'm in Melbourne, so Eastern Daylight Time, whatever it is. Eastern Standard Time, I think. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, I think is the time for now. At least for this league. But yeah, it's going to be 10 weeks, you know, as we saw on the bracket page here. Week 10 is the final. So yeah, wish you boy luck. Obviously, I'm going to be doing my best. You know, we have a pretty scary week 1 matchup. Ursaluna is a mon I'm always terrified to play against. If you boys have, you know, watched any of the videos in the past, I'm terrified of Ursaluna, man. And not to mention, you know, we talk about hating fairies. Thankfully, in this game, there are not that many good fairies, but sadly, Sylveon next to Oranguru as well is definitely one of the scarier ones. Just the Instruct Sylveon is going to do a lot of goddamn damage. So yeah, I am not looking forward to it. But look, I'm hoping we find a way around it. But yeah, guys, as I said, ask away. If there's any questions you want to know, ask away. But yeah, I've kind of been rambling on for a hot minute now. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.